Hey, what's up lads, it's Epic here. I just wanted to make a video to share with you some thoughts I've been having as of late regarding the endgame grind in Borderlands 3 and why I believe the anointment system is severely flawed and needs a rework. Now, before we start the video, I just want to say that I'm not stubborn in my opinion and my ways. I'm completely open to changing my views provided someone is able to bring up reasonable points as to why the current system is the best system, but I'm still yet to see such thing, which is why I want to put this video together in order to stir up a discussion and hopefully bring some change to what is, in my opinion, a very mediocre system. So if you're familiar with my streams over on Twitch, you may know by now that as of late I've been farming for a shock backburner with ASC Corrosive. Come to your own conclusions on whether or not that's a desirable role for you, but for me that is the quote god role, and I've been farming it non-stop for nearly a week now. Currently, at the time of recording this video, I am at 513 unsuccessful runs, 90% of which have all been documented live on stream. In those 500 some runs, I would say I have gotten maybe 50 backburners, or at least somewhere in that ballpark, which is totally fine. You know, I'm used to Borderlands 2 drop rates, and quite honestly, I don't hate those drop rates at all. It's the norm for me. I'll tell you what I do hate though, and that is when, in order for that insanely rare weapon to be effective, I have to get the right weapon anointment on it first. That, matched with me needing the right element for my build, makes the odds of getting this weapon under a 1% chance when you take into account the different elements, the 6.9% backburner drop rate, and the pool of 40 some anointments currently in game, not including event ones. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is just a huge rant video because player is mad he can't get good RNG. But honestly, it's not really that. In fact, it's much more deep in the long run of things and can drastically affect the life cycle of BL3 if it's not changed quickly. With the release of the new consoles, crossplay is going to be a feature in Borderlands 3, and this kind of RNG for gear in game is extremely bad for the community, as it will only promote save editing and duping even more due to how hard to obtain this gear really is. And once crossplay does arrive, that gear will find its way onto those platforms in little time. Now, I'm not throwing shade here, I'm just being completely honest with you guys. Numerous creators in the community, including myself, have already admitted to save editing in the past for some of their videos because of just how hard this gear is to get with the right anointments, and honestly, that's becoming the norm now for loot in Borderlands 3, and it's a big issue. The problem right now isn't the farming of the loot, but rather the farming of the anointment, considering how unreliable it is, since the current system is just literally stacking RNG atop of RNG, and not only is it hurting the farming of these anointments itself, but it's ruining the legendary rarity too, which is a really bad thing considering Gearbox at this time has no plans for any other rarities. It's one thing to say you won't add new rarities to the game, but to only have legendary rarity and then be content with it feeling so worthless compared to previous games is just silly to say the least, especially if you want this game to reach the high praise that Borderlands 2 got to. So now we have this problem on our hands where we're all asking ourselves what the point in farming is if the gear we really want is so unbelievably rare with the current system. And Gearbox is yet to address what is quickly becoming a very big issue. So again, I want to start up a conversation in this video by asking why this is and how I think Gearbox can improve upon and drastically change the system altogether. So the reason why I think they aren't making any changes to the system, or at least addressing it, is because, quite simply put, they just don't know how to. I remember hearing someone say that BL3 was built around the anointment system and how changing it would be a change 10 times bigger than the Mayhem to Mayhem 2.0 change, and I honestly can't say that I disagree with that in the slightest, but if we want this game to last as long as previous titles, we must act fast and start laying down the cement. Realistically, if we were to see a change to the anointment system, I think it'd come in year 3 just due to how large of a change it is, but that's if they can even be bothered to do it to begin with. Speaking of changes, I want to discuss a few potential changes Gearbox could make to the system in order to improve it, and I want you guys to let me know which one you prefer in the comment section down below. So the first and most commonly talked about change is to remove all bad anointments from the game, only leaving good or great ones in the pool to stop the farming feeling so punishing. And whilst this would suffice for a little bit, my biggest complaint with this suggestion is that it just isn't a long-term fix, nor is it a sensible one. Changing the anoint pool to only have these great anoints will not solve the lack of quests we currently have with this system, due to just how bored players will get of once again having to re-farm the anoint pool time and time again for each weapon they want. To put this into a bigger picture, say for example you have 50 anoints in the pool, making farming for what you want extremely difficult, and then you remove 20 of them, leaving the 30 good anoints. You're not solving the issue altogether, but rather easing it. This means that the issue is still there and will only arise again once new anointments are released, thus making the problem prominent once again. The second suggestion I want to touch on is one that I myself have even brought up a few times, but looking back on it now, I actually disagree with it quite a lot. This suggestion is to remove the anointment system from Borderlands 3 altogether. Now, my first thought with this suggestion was to totally wipe the anointment system as a whole and make weapon parts the dominant system now in how guns perform in BL3, with new parts even being added to provide greater gear bonuses. But there's a big glaring problem with this, and it's that removing the anointment system as a whole, which once again BL3 was basically built around, would not only be an insanely huge change, but would also render lots of builds useless. It would also result in a lack of build diversity and a lack of strive in farming as a whole, and I can tell you for a fact nobody wants that right now. So the last and final suggestion I wanted to bring up is one that I shared on Twitter a few days ago, which got quite a lot of people talking, and it also got a lot of support as a whole, so I want to talk about it in this video. So the concept for this change is to turn the anointment feature into a weapon customization slot where the anointments themselves can be placed and swapped out on the fly. This means that you would only have to farm the gun you're after once and then worry about farming your anointments afterwards. So how do you get your anointments? Well, you can get them from the proving grounds as a guaranteed drop from the chest at the end, or get lucky and get up to 3 drops per proving grounds completion. Or you can get lucky and pull them from any slot machine by winning the jackpot, which is insanely rare, and they can also drop from raid bosses with a low drop chance too. Now, once you apply an anointment to an item, that anointment is locked to the item unless it is removed, thus destroying the anointment altogether to avoid the system becoming stale. These anointments, unlike weapons, will also have no level requirement, meaning they can be put onto any weapon level so long as the item supports the anoint. Not only would this system give players a reason to farm endgame activities, but it would also make the legendary rarity feel special again, and perhaps even make players care about the overshadowed weapon part system too. Now, here are some of the most common questions that arose when I brought this system up. What will happen to currently anointed gear and event anoints too? The answer to both of these questions is simply nothing. The weapons will move the anointment into their respective anoint slot, and as for event gear, it will do the exact same. And yes, event anoints can be farmed exactly the same way provided the event is active. The second question I saw was, how can this work if the legendary drop rates are so high for world drops right now? And the answer to that is extremely simple. Gearbox needs to drastically lower the world drop rates, making the legendary rarity feel rare again. Now that the anointments aren't a condition, but rather a coalition, we don't need to throw hundreds of legendaries in players' faces for every Varkit they kill. And finally, the other question I got was, how would Gearbox prevent save editing and or duping of these anointments, thus spreading them everywhere, making the game too easy? And this is a very good question, as spreading anointed gear right now is much harder since anoints are locked to gear, thus making spreading every anoint on every piece of gear very, very challenging. But honestly, the fix to this situation is quite frankly to not try and fix it at all. And I know for some that's gonna sound really bizarre and quite frankly just outright stupid, but trying to control editing and duping within a Borderlands game has never worked before, and it certainly won't work now either. The absolute best thing Gearbox can do is to stop players feeling the need to do such things by implementing a much better system before stuff like save editing and anoint duping becomes too much of a common practice. But that won't happen if we just sit here and do nothing. But anyway guys, that's gonna do it for my discussion. Please give give me your thoughts in the comment section down below, and feel free to come up with your own suggestions to share with me also. On that note though, thank you guys for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and have a nice day.